guys, Chris here, and welcome to Cozy Book Nook. This week's book is The Picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde. I lost track of what book we were on, so I just grabbed a new one, and I picked up The Picture of Dorian Gray. It was one I picked up a long time ago because I was going to read all the classics, and it's one of those B&N classics books that has the stuff in the front and the back. So I learned some interesting facts about Oscar Wilde that I didn't know. Let's move on to the book. Okay, if you've never read the book and only seen Dorian Gray in film, throw everything you think you know about him out the window. I personally will never look at Dorian Gray the same in film ever again because he is a giant bitch baby and he annoys the hell out of me in the book. I had to put the book down a few times because he would just get on my nerves. Between him and Lord Henry, I would get so annoyed with the characters in this book, and I just wanted to throw it across the room because they are not good people, especially Lord Henry. He's a corrupter. He, uses people, well, he doesn't use people. He influences people for his own amusement. He uses, psychology against them. I just really hated that character, and if it wasn't for Lord Henry, Dorian Gray probably would have been a decent human being, which is another reason why I really don't like Lord Henry. The book is, you're following Dorian Gray. You open up with a painter in his studio painting. His name is Basil. I enjoy him. Of course, that means the curse happens. Basil's talking to Lord Henry, and Lord Henry is like, wow, your painting's gotten amazing. What's your secret? And Basil's like, I don't want to tell you. You'll fuck it up. But Lord Henry ends up getting him to tell him about Dorian Gray, who's been sitting with him, and he's like, I freaking love this guy. He makes my paintings amazing. And unfortunately for Basil, Dorian comes for his sitting, and Lord Henry's like, I'm gonna stay, even though Basil's like, please go. And Lord Henry talks to Dorian Gray and makes him a vain little shit in one conversation, which is kind of weird. After Dorian sits for Basil, Basil's like, yay, the painting's finished, and it's one of Basil's best. And Dorian Gray looks at the painting and he's like, I wish my painting aged instead of me. Hardy har, careful what you wish for. Life goes on. A month later, Dorian starts hanging out with Lord Henry more. He's leaving Basil by the wayside, and this book is basically just following Dorian's life as he fucks it up more and more, and he becomes obsessed with the painting because he views it as a view piece to his own soul. So he tries to become better, but then he's the painting doesn't get better, and he's like, is it a vanity reason? What is this, all this? And he hides the painting away up in the attic. He showed only one person the painting after it was put away, and he showed it to Basil, and he ends up fucking murdering Basil. And I'm gonna admit, I threw the book at that point. I was like, no, that boy was too good for you. But yeah, it just follows Dorian's life as he fucks it up. And in the end, he's staring at the painting, and he's like, fuck you, painting. And he stabs the painting, which ends up reversing everything. So he gets the knife in the chest, and he becomes old and everything, and the painting becomes beautiful again. I gotta admit, it was pretty good. It had some good thoughts into it, but it got a little fanciful at times. I don't need 3 pages describing jewels and what royalty wore what jewels and stuff like that. That's not necessary. You're kind of just eating up time. Yeah, I get it. He was into jewelry and stones and stuff like that for a while, but I don't need 2 fucking pages of what royalty were what jewels and how many. Come on, dude. Oh, and while he's messing up his life, he's also not only messing up his life, he ends up messing up, basically anyone who becomes friends with him, he messes up their life. Because he, tells them to do the same thing he's doing. And they end up, one gets addicted to opium, and one of his, little girlfriends, and, the first girl he ends up falling in love with and wanting to marry, he ends up being go away, and she ends up killing herself. But yeah, he ends up messing up everybody's life messes up his life. Oh, that's another thing. After he killed Basil, he called one of his friends and blackmailed him into getting rid of the body for him, which the friend ends up getting so much guilt that he ends up killing himself. So, Dorian Gray, not a good person. High society ends up getting a distaste for him. What else do I want to say about the book? Ooh, I found questions! Alrighty. Do critics today consider the morality of both the artist's life and his or her art? Are these factors separate, or are they, word I cannot say, linked? No, I think they're separate. You can have a saint of a person paint the most horrendous things. So, yeah. In literature, as perhaps in life, the supernatural is often a metaphor for the psychological. If the transformation of the painting is psychology made visible, whose psychology? Are we to understand that Dorian does ugly things, or that he does things that he considers ugly, or that society around him considers ugly? I don't think he considers them ugly, because as he's doing them, he doesn't think about it. It's when he sees what happens to the painting, and I think that's society viewing it as ugly. Kind of goes to that whole, the villain doesn't view themselves as a villain, they view themselves as a hero. But in this case, they don't view themselves as ugly, they view themselves as beautiful until someone else is like, hey, you ugly as shit. Is sin ugly or beautiful? Can you do saintly things that are ugly? I honestly can't answer that one. Is sin ugly or beautiful? Can you do saintly things that are ugly? I think it all depends on perspective. Yeah, it all depends on perspective. At the end, Howard and Dorian, Howard is Basil, are dead, and Lord Henry is a defeated and disappointed man. Oh yeah, he got his ass dumped. Are they punished, perhaps unconsciously self-punished, for their sins, or are defeat and disappointment inevitable parts of the human condition? Yes and yes. Defeat and disappointment is inevitable, but it's how you take that. Like, do you just lay on the ground and let people keep trampling on you? Or do you get up, brush yourself off, and be like, and just continue on? These guys did not just get up and brush themselves off. They wallowed in their midst. Wilde said, I can resist anything except temptation. Lord Henry says similar things. Analyze a few of his sayings. What is funny, or at least striking, about both of them? I think Lord Henry was kind of the insert for Wilde. You know how Stephen King always writes a person that's a writer into some of his books? I think that's kind of what Wilde did here. It's like a self-insert type deal. Which makes me think I would not have liked Oscar Wilde in life. What else? Each man sees his own sin in Dorian Gray. What Dorian Gray's sins are, no one knows. He who finds them has brought them. From the Scots Observer, July 12th, 1890. If that's true, then my sin would be to be being swayed easily by the thoughts of other people. And anyone who knows me knows that's not the case. That is a picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I enjoyed it. I probably won't pick it up again, like, unless the mood strikes me. It's not going to be like one of my favorites that I read over and over and over again. It is good. It makes you think. It has a message that stays with you afterwards, so it's a good read. And if you haven't read it, read it so you have it under your belt. Like I said, it makes you think. It puts some good ideas, or bad ideas. Don't do the bad ideas. But yeah. Picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde. Seriously, tell me what you If you've read it, tell me what you think in the comments. I'd love to start a discussion. You know the drill. See you at the next Cozy Book Nook, and have fun. Ciao.